Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for next week to 10 days for today's second video, which will take us around the 19th of September. We will be able to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS. That runs around a couple of weeks, and also ECM ensembles. So have a look at the 7th quickly at the end of the video, and that'll take us into the beginning of October. So, first video up today was having a look at weather for the final test of the Ashes. That's coming up starting on Thursday and running through to Monday next week. So that really does close the door on this season of summer events forecast at Gazwovids. That's the final one that we'll be doing. Of course, we'll be back next summer in 2020 with more events and festivals and bank holiday and whatnot forecast for the spring and summer season of 2020. But it won't be all that long before we're starting Christmas countdown. Actually, only the 1st of November, I think, we do the first video for the Christmas countdown. So that will be with us before you know it, I'm sure. Over the weekend, it was a busy weekend. We released the second winter 2019-2020 update. Yes, these things have gone down very, very well. I've had over 2,000 video views for that one in 24 hours. So phenomenal response to that. And also, of course, we did the live chat about that winter update yesterday evening on the YouTube channel. That ran for just over an hour between 5 and 6 o'clock. You can have a listen and replay the chat if you would like to do that. The video is on the Gazwovids YouTube channel. I'll try and get on the homepage at Gazwovids either today or tomorrow. Right, let's get on with this video then. And we're going to start off by having a look at the tropical Atlantic. So things are beginning to calm down a little bit after a very active week last week. However, we still have 3 areas of interest. You'll notice that Dorian has gone, finally. There's no sign of Dorian. That's becoming just an area of low pressure in the North Atlantic. But we have still got Gabrielle. This is tropical storm Gabrielle just here, quite a long way north in the Atlantic. So that's giving maximum sustained winds of 60 miles an hour with a central pressure of 997 millibars. It's moving northeastwards at 16 miles per hour. If we click on Gabrielle, we can see what she's being forecast to do. So at the moment, tropical storm Gabrielle is just there and will be there tomorrow. By the end of tomorrow, this will be a post-tropical storm as it moves further northwards in the Atlantic. And by the time we get through to Thursday, actually post-tropical storm Gabrielle will be to the northwest of Ireland and the UK. So she's going to be coming our way, but just as a area of low pressure, really. But it will bring warmer air northwards into the North Atlantic with it. And over the weekend into next week, it does look over weather for a while anyway. It could get really quite warm under quite a large area of high pressure. More on that in a moment. And we've got 2 areas of interest, 2 disturbance areas. So we've got a yellow X just here. Let's see what it's saying about that one. It's disturbance 2, and as of 2 o'clock this morning, it's giving disorganised cloudiness and showers located a few hundred miles north and northeast of the northern Leeward Islands, and it's associated with a surface trough interacting with an upper level low pressure area. Strong upper level winds are expected to prevent the development of this system during the next few days while it moves west northwestwards to the north of the Leeward Islands and Puerto Rico. However, environmental conditions could become a little more favourable for development when the disturbance moves near the Bahamas and Florida later this week. Oh dear, I don't think they'll want any more disturbances in the Bahamas after the havoc that Dorian caused last week. So that's a little bit concerning that they're saying that. Anyway, in the next 48 hours, it's got a 0% chance of cyclone development. It's not going to do anything in particular in the next 2 days. In the next 5 days, just a 20% chance. So even if this does get to the Bahamas and to Florida, hopefully nothing too serious will develop with this one. And then we've also got another yellow X just there. So we'll just quickly see what they're saying about that one. It's disturbance 1. That's one that formed off the coast of Africa, you remember, last week. Disturbance 1, 20% chance of cyclone formation in the next 48 hours. They're saying a weak area of low pressure associated with a tropical wave is producing disorganised showers of thunderstorms about midway between the Cabo Verde Islands and the Windward Islands. Some slow development of the system is possible during the next few days before upper level winds become unfavourable for cyclone formation. This system is expected to move generally westward across the tropical Atlantic during the next several days. So, again, it doesn't look like this one's going to develop into anything too serious at the moment. Around 3 or 4 days ago, this had around a 60-70% chance of cyclone formation. So it has been reduced quite a lot. So at the moment, it doesn't look like we're going to get any more tropical storms or hurricanes this week, but we will have to keep a very close eye on it. Particularly, I think this one just here that is going to head towards the Bahamas and Florida, and let's hope it doesn't develop into another tropical storm or hurricane as it does so. Right, so these are the 500 millibar high anomaly flow charts from Penn State University for the next week to 10 days. We've got the ECMWF here on the top, and the GFS is on the bottom. Blue is extrapolating to below average heights, which is low pressure. Orange and red extrapolates to above average heights, which is high pressure. This gets us into the second half of September. It takes us around the 19th of September. You'll see that the ECM has quite a deep trough of low pressure slinking through Scandinavia and northeastern parts of Europe. And at the same time, the ridge, that's going to give us a lot of dry weather in the next week to 10 days. And for a while, very warm weather. The ridge is actually pulling out here into the middle of the North Atlantic. It's heading up towards Greenland. And what this would do, as the ridge pulls out to our west, it will start to allow much cooler air to dig in from the north. So in the 7 to 10 day time frame, the ECM this morning is starting to dig in colder air, or certainly much cooler air from the north. This is how the GFS is looking though. This is a midnight run of the GFS. Very different. The above average height centred almost over top of the country. Well, centred over top of the country. Low pressure is up to the north. The jet stream is going up there. And of course, that's going to be a much warmer scenario because with that, the winds are coming in from a southerly to southeasterly direction. That was the midnight GFS run, though. We have had another GFS run, the 6 o'clock run, that I'm going to show you in a moment. They both indicate high pressure dominates. There's going to be a lot of dry weather in the next week to 10 days. It's just the position of the high pressure that's going to be critical in terms of the feel of the weather. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles next couple of weeks. And it's Sheffield in the north of England today. So red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Sheffield. You see a lot of warm weather coming up over the next couple of weeks, really. So at the moment, still a little bit low with the upper air temperature. They're going to be slightly up and down for the next few days as we get weak areas of low pressure sort of brushing up against the country. They're going to bring weak cold fronts with them. As those cold fronts push through, the upper air temperatures will lower slightly and then lift back up. But turning through to weekend into next week, a more definitively above average period of weather could turn very warm over weekend into the start of next week. And then we get quite a lot of scatter beginning to appear as we look ahead towards the final week of September. This is very extended range stuff. Most of the GFS ensemble members are up here, so keeping things warm into the final week of September. But we have got quite a few. They're a minority option, but there is quite a few that are going much cooler through this through to the final week of September, if you like. And it does include the very latest GFS run that you're going to see in a moment. This thick green line is the very latest GFS run. You'll notice that is on the colder side of the cluster, if you like. So most GFS members are keeping things warm, but we have got this minority option down here that are turning things much cooler for the final week or so of September. And it does include the latest GFS run, which you're going to see any moment. On precipitation-wise, so just loads of dry weather coming up. We haven't got rain today across much of the country. After that, really be looking at lots and lots of dry weather, even towards the very extended range. There's barely any precipitation spikes to be seen, so we are in for a protracted, very dry period. And of course, it has been very dry already through this September for many of us. So this is going to turn out, I think, to be a notably dry September. Could be, you know, top 10, top 20, certainly driest September's on record, I think, this one. Unless anything dramatic happens in the final week, which of course we can't rule out because the GFS ensembles are only going up to the 25th of September. So that still leaves us with a few days at the end of the month where it could turn much wetter, of course. So go for the temperature anomalies. Temperature anomaly from the 9th to the 17th of September, generally a little bit above average. These will probably be trending warmer over the next day or so. Precipitation anomalies looking very dry, so we're back to slightly warmer and drier than average conditions. This is how the GFS is looking for Thursday then. So this, I think, is the remains of Gabrielle, this little area of low pressure that's coming in towards the northwest Scotland. It's a weak feature, but it is bringing up warmth from the tropical Atlantic because it's the remains of a tropical storm, of course. As we go through into the weekend, we find high pressure increasingly strengthening across the country. So high pressure is taking over at the end of the week and into weekend. Huge ridge of high pressure at 1,030 millibars there by Sunday. That's Sunday the 15th of September. So that's a little bit unsettled for the far north of Scotland with this area of low pressure, but otherwise it is a case of high pressure dominating. It can turn very warm over the weekend. I think by sort of Sunday into this time next week, we'll probably be seeing maximum temperatures around 25, that's 77 in Fahrenheit. There's the upper air temperatures for the start of next week, showing warm or very warm upper air temperatures really for the time of year. Now, through the course of next week, this GFS run does start to reposition the area of high pressure. So this is Tuesday, 17th of September. Upper air temperatures just start to turn a bit cooler then up in the north, still quite warm down in the south. As we go towards the middle of next week, that high pressure increasingly showing signs of moving towards our northwest. So we call this retrogression when we start to move high pressure from east to west. That sort of direction, as opposed to the typical zonal flow, which of course is west to east. So the high pressure beginning to ridge up towards Greenland. Much cooler air, there'll be a cold front just here. Much cooler air is lurking up to the north, trying to get south. It is actually pushing southwards through Scandinavia. And the upshot is that by the time we get through to day 10, the upper air temperatures are starting to look a little bit cooler in the north, but even then still quite warm in the south. But then the high pressure does go out to the northwest as we go into more extended range. This is Friday, 20th of September. Much cooler upper air temperatures then are digging southwards. We are even starting to bring -5 Celsius ice firm to the far north of Scotland. That could be enough to start turning any showers wintry over Scottish mountains, would you believe? And then the high pressure sort of sticking around, but within a much cooler air mass now. So we go through to Monday, 23rd of September. We're still under high pressure, so it's still mainly dry, but it's a much cooler air mass. Daytime temperatures would only be at best average, and nights would be cold with a risk of ground frost, especially up in the north. There's this area of low pressure just here as well. That's the remains of a tropical storm or a hurricane, I would have thought. And as we get through to the very end of a GFS run, which gets us to Wednesday, 25th of September, we are beginning to show signs of trying to move that low pressure in towards the UK. So this ridge is starting to weaken and collapse quite a lot as low pressure, the remains of some sort of a tropical type feature, begins to head towards us from the Atlantic. So that might imply that actually there could be some much wetter conditions for the very end of September. But this is all very extended range stuff, over 2 weeks away, so it is really unreliable. That's how the GEM is looking. So high pressure building up at the end of the week, taking over as we get into the weekend. That's Sunday, well and truly dominated by high pressure then, and that high pressure domination continues really unabated through next week. There's no sign of taking the high pressure north or west with the GEM. We just keep it close to the country, so that will keep us in dry and very warm conditions all the way up to day 10. No sort of northerly influence coming in with that. There's the ECMWF, and we know what this is going to do from the 500 millibar height anomaly flowchart that we started off with from the Penn State University. This is Thursday though. High pressure is building up from the southwest into weekend. High pressure takes over. Still a little bit more unsettled for Scotland over the weekend. England and Wales, yes, it is mainly dry and very warm. There's the upper air temperatures. 15 Celsius ice firm is getting towards southern coastal counties. Now next week, this is when the high pressure begins to move. Here it goes, starting to pull out to the north and west. So high pressure is beginning to ridge up to what looks like actually perhaps signs of renewed blocking around Greenland. That's something we have throughout the summer, of course. There will be a cold front in that sort of position, waiting to bring cooler air down from the north. There's the upper air temperatures up to Tuesday 17th, but still generally very warm with the upper air temperatures, especially in the south. But then as we get through to the middle of next week, the high pressure goes sort of northwest, and it does start to allow much cooler air to dig in to that high pressure from the north. So there's the upper air temperatures by day 10, Thursday the 19th of September. And obviously that's a lot cooler compared to how we start at the beginning of the week. So what this high pressure is going to do is very, very critical to the weather that we're going to get next week in terms of the temperature. Anyway, it does look as though the high pressure will stay with us for the next week to 10 days. And that's going to give us a lot of dry weather. But the feel of the weather is going to be quite interesting. Will depend on where that high pressure goes. If it goes through a route like the GEM, it's showing it's going to be very warm through much of next week. If it does something like what the 6 o'clock GFS has done and the ECM midnight run is doing, then we will turn, after a warm start to next week, we will turn much, much cooler indeed. These are the scenarios that are on the table within the ECM ensembles today for day 10. This is getting us to the 19th of September. So we have 18 members of the ECM ensembles with high pressure sitting over and to the south of the country. Low pressure is up to the north, mainly dry and quite warm with that scenario. Then we have another 15 that have the high pressure pretty much centred over the country. Let's change the colour. Pretty much centred over the country and going up to the northeast. Well, low pressure's out to the northwest, so that's going to be mostly dry and potentially warm. Another 11 with high pressure over the top of the country. So most of these ECM ensemble members are going for anticyclonic weather with high pressure centred over the UK. We have B7 down here. That does include the ECM control and the operational run. That's the run we was just looking at, that are doing this cooler idea, beginning to pull the high pressure out into the Atlantic and moving it northwest. With the trough of low pressure sinking through Scandinavia, it leaves us pulling down much cooler northerly winds, even colder, you would say, northerly to northwesterly winds by day 10. That, though, is a minority option within the ECM ensembles. Only 7 are doing that, albeit it's a control and the operational run together. But only 7 are doing that. Generally, most of those ECM ensemble members, similar to the GFS ensembles, most of them are keeping things warm, potentially very warm, up to day 10. And then in 2 weeks' time, these are the options that we've got. This is getting to 24th of September. 22 members of the ECM ensembles with high pressure centred over top of the country. So that would be mainly dry. Of course, it would depend whether we've infiltrated any cool air from the north as to what the feel of the weather would be like. 19 with high pressure over just to the south of the country. Low pressure's up to the north. That's more of a westerly type influence, but it's getting mainly dry. And then 10 with high pressure sitting in the middle of the North Atlantic and going up towards Greenland. Low pressure through Scandinavia and into central parts of Europe. That's a much cooler, even colder option. These us bringing in northwesterly winds. And could even be a bit showery for northern eastern parts of the country. Maybe the first snowflakes falling over the Scottish mountains with that scenario. So it is very, very dependent. Whether we're going to get next week is very dependent on where this high pressure is going. Finally, CFSV2, these are 500 millibar heights broken down to week periods. The first week period takes from the 9th to the 15th of September. The coming week will have low pressure up to the north and high pressure over to the south of the country. Jet streams push north, lots of dry and quite warm weather on the way in the week ahead. Week 2 is going to be the 16th, 22nd of September. High pressure just to our west-southwest. Low pressure is up to the north. That looks mostly dry and you would have thought warm, potentially very warm with that. Then we go through to week 3. High pressure is on the move then. It's pulling out to our west. Low pressure with this trough is digging in through Scandinavia and Central Europe. That, I would have thought, pulls down much cooler winds from the north or the northwest. And then we finish up in week 4, the 30th of September to 6th of October. High pressure is just out to the northwest of the country. And around that high pressure, you would have thought we're bringing in the winds sort of from a north type direction, perhaps northeasterly, could be a little bit northwesterly, but either way, fairly dry, but probably quite cool, probably quite a cool start to September, cool start to October, I should say. With that one. Finally, just to say that if you've been enjoying the videos lately, including, of course, the winter updates, then please consider becoming a patron for Gav's Weather. It has 62 patrons so far. Hello, and a big thank you to our 62 patrons. Hope you've been enjoying all of the content and the updates that we've been producing at Gav's Weathers over the past few days and weeks. If you would like to become a patron and give an ongoing monthly donation to Gav's Weathers, can be anything from $1 a month upwards. So it doesn't have to be a large amount of money whatsoever, but if you'd like to do it, all you need to do is come to Gav's Weathers Patreon page, sign up for a Patreon account, and then you can become a patron for Gav's Weathers. And by doing that, you're going to get a shout out in videos. We'll say thank you very much for doing that. And that's great. That's how you become a patron for Gav's Weathers. Alternatively, you can give a one-off donation through PayPal. So if you would like to give a donation through PayPal, all you need to do is come to Gav's Weathers PayPal page. We link to both Patreon and PayPal in the description at YouTube and on all pages at gavsweathers.com. You just come to the Gav's Weathers PayPal page, sign into your PayPal account, and then you can give a donation to Gav's Weathers. And again, you'll get a mention in videos to say thank you so much for doing that. Whether you do it through PayPal or Patreon, you're going to get a mention as long as you would like one. We can also, of course, plug your website, your business. So we're always happy to do that. If you would like a little shout out for your website or business, we have done that in the past, and we're happy to do so if that's how you'd like mentioned. So just leave a little note with your donation to let us know how you want the shout out. And that's great. Thanks so much for doing that. You're going to be helping us to pay for gavsweathers.com and keep all the content online. So a big thank you to everybody for doing that. Right, so that's it for today's videos. Tomorrow we're going to have the ECMDF 30-day look ahead, and also there'll be a week to 10-day video update coming up tomorrow as well. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.